Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here. So I've been buying a lot of comics that I haven't done videos about because I don't want to make a video just for the sake of making a video. And I've kind of joked in the past about storybook time with number one Marmaduke fan. And I think in the past I've always been more interested in talking about conventions and composition and kind of artsy things about the medium and making comics. And then something clicked for me while I was reading this one, which is that a lot of people, who like comics are probably interested in talking about little, things about panels and composition and making a good comic. But for a lot of people, doing a storybook time for a comic they haven't heard about might be an interesting selling point for them. And as I was reading this, I was getting so excited. What clicked was it's not enough just to do an issue on issue 0 and say, highest recommendation, go buy this. I said I won't do another one if I don't have anything new to say, but I got new things to say. I kept getting excited. This is everything I said about issue 0 is true about issue 1. This is a highest recommend, and it's giving me new things to talk about. My goodness, this is everything I loved about old Superman stories. This is everything about the Steve Ditko Stan Lee Spider-Man stories being facilitated by Italian writers with the character of Donald Duck. If Steve Ditko drew Spider-Man in the role of Donald Duck in this story, this would be an all-time classic Spider-Man story from that era. And this was sitting on the shelf since October 2016. Go get this, guys. Oh my goodness. When I was thinking about which page to skip, so I wouldn't get a copyright strike, I was looking at pages thinking, can I skip this? Can I skip this? And I keep seeing things on pages that are, wow, highest recommendation. Oh my gosh. Get everything with Duck Avenger. Okay, so first thing I noticed was this came from Italian Papernick New Adventures number 2, which made me think, well, what happened to number 1? Because the last one was issue 0. But then later I read and realized, okay, this is the direct continuation of the previous issue. So there must have been some other kind of story in Papernick issue 1, like Mickey Mouse or Scrooge McDuck or something. And this is just continuing the same story. All right, let's get the artist, okay? Because I just want to throw mad respect at this entire team. Alessandro Sisti, Ezio Sisto, artist Claudio Schiarone. Mad respect. Oh my gosh, I have been needing a detox from SJW Marvel. This wasn't just a detox. This is everything I've loved about comics. Donald Duck. Donald Duck is Duck Avenger. This is the reason I thought maybe I skipped something at first. He appeared through a wormhole, and look at this. All these crazy characters. It looks like a fight's about to start, but then you find out it was all just a dream, and he wakes up, and it's kind of charming as he's slipping on his shirt and going to work, and Uncle Scrooge is giving him a tough time. So what I think I'll skip is him kind of getting into his superhero suit and talking to the superhero computer and going to the scene of the crime and just get to the fight. So I think we're gonna do storybook time with Uncle Marmaduke fan. So if you're someone who just likes to hear a bit of the story before you go get the comic, we'll do the storybook time. I'll do my artistic observations, and I will keep pointing out why I'm so excited about this and what contemporary superhero comic artists can learn from this excellent series. There is so much heart here. There's so much passion here. I am so happy. Okay, so we don't find the villain's name out right away, but he's kind of got sort of, a Cable Robo look. And Donald Duck shows up and challenges him. Then he appears behind him and clonks his lights out. And Donald wakes up to find the alarm buzzing. And Angus Fangus, he's the Kiwi bird whose name I couldn't remember last time. Angus Fangus is the J. Jonah Jameson of this world where they're taking ideas from Superman, they're taking some of the heart of old school Spider-Man stories, and they're bringing it into its own unique, excellent superhero world with Donald Duck as the main character. All right, so Angus Fangus, of course, blames Duck Avenger for breaking into a cardboard box factory because he has it in for Donald Duck. And we see the distress on Donald Duck. He highlights for us that this is a downer for him. Last time, Angus Fengus had to manipulate footage to accuse the Duck Avenger of being a criminal. This time, he doesn't have to manipulate anything. He looks like a sap. That is the Steve Ditko, Stan Lee typical Spider-Man story. He'd show up, he'd try to be a hero, someone would accuse him of being a criminal, he'd feel like a sad sack afterwards, and that his luck was never going his way. Donald Duck is a cartoon character whose kind of defining attribute is his lack of luck. I joked last time, it's so weird to imagine Donald Duck's voice saying this. Maybe that adds a layer of humor to you to imagine that kind of, this time that snake oil newsman. But I just started reading this in the same voice I read Peter Parker's voice in. Because he's a hero. Oh my goodness. Okay, and then Lyla Lee, who's kind of the Lois Lane of this world. We see her kind of, okay, intrigue. There's multiple plot points, and they're weaving them all together. They're using their 72 pages to tell an action story with multiple things coming together. So we know something's up. She suspects something because the dimensions of the cardboard box that the rooster stole are somehow significant to her. What? Why are the dimensions of the cardboard box so significant? Tell me, story. I want to know. And then the supercomputer one shows Donald, the getaway footage of the rooster and disappearing into time. And I love Donald's various kinds of curses. Ye cats! Great. What? Okay, I'm in. All right. And then Uncle Scrooge brings tenants, and we discover that the tenants are Channel 00 News, including Lyla Lee and Angus Fengus. So poor Donald, they're going to move into his headquarters. And he gets a little bit of revenge on Angus Fengus by messing with the elevator a bit. Uncle Scrooge is his typical skinflint self. And he's such a pure character, Donald. He doesn't like that Scrooge is essentially lying and manipulating to these people as he's making the sale. He has that kind of heroic heart to him where he cares about the truth. Where is it? So Lyla Lee, my first thought about her in the first issue was that, well, she's just Lois Lane, right? And there have been many versions of Lois Lane, but kind of the consistent attribute of Lois Lane is that she is a go-getter, female reporter, kind of the first wave feminist back in the golden age of comics, even when she was kind of just a pain in Superman's butt. In the Superman animated series, she was this sharp as a tack lady who's always given Smallville a hard time. She's always been a go-getter type, even if the subtleties of her character are different from era to era. So my initial impression of Lyla Lee was, well, okay, she's pretty much Lyla Lee, Lois Lane. She's that character. And I liked her because she seemed sharp as a tack. She seemed bright and thoughtful. Her intelligence was communicated not by her saying, I am so smart, I am so smart. It was communicated by how she talked and how she acted. And Angus Fengus hints that maybe she likes the Duck Avenger. Ooh, is there a budding romance? Who knows? Oh, wow. Bright color used emotively. Gosh, I'm noticing things on my second read-through that I didn't notice on my first read-through. So the tension is, what if Angus Fengus discovers Donald Duck's secret identity? And I care because I care about Donald Duck. And here, okay, so this whole little interchange is where Lyla Lee is hinting that maybe she knows that Duck Avenger and Donald Duck are one and the same. If so, they are suspecting. So she's saying, well, if I were a criminal, I would steal this sample of a experimental substance that is what's its powers. It's like very resilient, but also kind of pliant like rubber. So it's the futuristic material of this world. And says Lyla, if I were the Duck Avenger, I'd guard that sample with my life. Angus Fengus says, before you said you'd steal it like a sneak. Who cares? After all, I'm not the Duck Avenger. Am I? Question mark. Good. Look at this. I'm learning things. Okay, so the hatching and the cross-hatching. Donald Duck is a simple cartoon character, and what I learned about drawing from reading this is they are using a strong line for Donald Duck's outline and solid blacks for his outfit. but then hatching to add shading and drama to certain panels without losing readability. When I've used a single type of brush in some of my work, I felt like it got too scribbly, and I was having a hard time, distinguishing, shape from texture in my drawings. But this artist is using a fine line for the shading and a thick line for Donald Duck so that we can have shading, but it blends together as a whole and reads as shading, not thick black bars on his face. Oh my goodness. All right, the chicken shows up and he rips off a van, and then immediately he shows up in a store as he's been ripping off the van. So if you are paying attention as you're reading and you have read superhero stories before, you've noticed that this chicken has shown up in multiple places at the same time, twice in a row. And he keeps making these heavy-handed mentions of the word time. He's done it about 3 times so far, so you get the feeling that, okay, he's making some kind of joke about running out of time. And at first I was kind of groaning and thinking, are they going to do some kind okay, he's a time travel villain or something. Are they going to beat this to death? But they do something clever with the humor. He says, this city's a comedy gold mine. So what's being communicated to me here is I'm not supposed to be laughing because his time puns are funny. I should be laughing because he thinks his time puns are funny, and he's kind of he's got a swelled head about his own sense of humor. So without them pointing out the 800-pound gorilla or hitting me over the head with a humor frying pan, it's so silly, they have let me know, oh, this guy's an egghead. Now every time he makes a time pun, it's funny without them having to whack me over the head with how silly and random they are. So off disappears our villain, and Donald, not being an idiot, picked up on the subtext of what she was saying, and he's figured out that she knows he's the Duck Avenger. The only thought I had is that can be hard to write, that kind of subtext. You're saying one thing, but you're actually saying another thing. And my long ago, one of my first videos was, SJW Marvel writers. They need to read more Charles Dickens, they need to read more Jane Austen, and they need to get off Twitter and stop insulting the fans on Twitter. If you want to know how do I write dialogue where one thing is being communicated but really another thing is also being communicated, stretch yourself a little bit and read something that is maybe a little harder than you think it would, even if it's Victorian literature or something, because that's something the writers had to glean from their reading. And I'm big on this. You get all sorts of stuff from all kinds of different sources. You stir and mix it in the big pot of story, and out comes your story. So Steve Ditko's Spider-Man comic books are one thing in the big pot of story that these writers are using, but they've got lots of things that they're mixing together. Science knowledge, all kinds of stuff. Man. All right. So then we see Lyla Lee with her bright, shiny eyes, and several hours later, and we see Donald Duck preparing his trap for Red Raider, which is actually a pretty cool villain name. So he's we were through his dialogue with one, we learned that he is sneaking in because he's afraid that if he let the people know in the place he's breaking into, then the information could leak and Red Raider might not come. Color is used. What's the word I'm looking for? They use monochromatic color schemes in certain panels to add some warmth and give you a little bit of diversity in the colors that are used, but still generally a pretty consistent color pattern for everything else. So it's not wham in your face, goofy coloring choices. It's generally pretty pleasing. Kind of a goofy pose there, like he looks like he should trip over, but we get a really good fight with him thinking through the situation, them exchanging some banter. It's not like Spider-Man roast god level, but Donald's not only quick on his feet, he's thinking quick too while having this dialogue. I love this panel. Purple and then back to the normal color scheme. He looks awesome. He looks so cool throughout this whole fight. And then that continues, and then they take it away. Warning. Everything you just read in the last 7 pages is now completely meaningless. Let's go back a few hours to show you what we mean. So they revisit the same dialogue from a few pages ago to help place me in time, and then he shows up and talks to Angus Fangus and gives him a tip. Now, this blew my mind. This blew my mind. So, I look at that and say, oh, I remember seeing that. And I look back at that, and I look at that, and I start comparing it and thinking, yeah, they just copied the same page. And then I look. And then I look. And I realize they did not copy paste this scene. Oh my gosh! How many Marvel comic books have I read with copy paste over and over again? Look at this. This is the exact same scene. This is even supposed to be a bit where this is the same moment in time, but the artist didn't copy paste it. They redrew it. I would completely have forgiven them. This is separated by 7 pages. This is supposed to be a time travel bit, but they weren't lazy. SJW, Marvel, why was this on the shelves for a year and no one knew and no one got this? This beats everything I've read from Marvel this whole year. I lost my place. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. All right. That just made me so happy to see an artist not being lazy in a comic book. Yes. Okay. So, again, the theme of they build him up and they take it away. They build him up. All that 7 pages of him being awesome didn't happen. We got to see him being awesome, but now they're taking it away and knocking down the character again. Once again, Angus Fengus shows up, and the police are even hesitant and sad about having to arrest Duck Avenger. We're continuing the theme of poor Duck Avenger. He keeps getting accused of things we know he's innocent of. If this was a Marvel comic, this would be the same pose, copy-pasted, and maybe they would have redrawn the cape, but slightly different angle in each drawing. Drawing. Draw in your comic books. Yes! And then he gets kidnapped by this weird thing, and it turns out, head fake, it was one saving him. This page interested me. Just looking at it, there's a lot of, it's almost kind of cluttered and too tightly packed. Like, it would be easy to get lost in this. Well, okay, guide number 1 is you have the dialogue balloons leading you where you're supposed to go in this page. Now, let's say you're stubborn, or let's say you're a little kid who's not that literate, and you start reading. Well, you come down here, he's tugging on his mask, arrow, up here. Well, let's say you ignore that and you come down here. The metal arm of his awesome metal weapon thing, arrow, up here. Okay, you're still stubborn. You come down here, swirly dirly. Bounce, that bounces us back up here to arrow, up here, bounces it back up to mask, up here. The art is helping us figure out the order we're supposed to read this in. Che bella! It's so appropriate to appropriate Italian culture for this comic. Oh my goodness. More emotional color used to heighten his fearful expression. He remembers Red Raider disappearing and appearing behind his back. And then he interacts with Lyla Lee, and she accidentally calls him Duck Avenger. And look, he winks at us as he figures out that she knew his secret identity the whole time. They have a really fascinating conversation about her being a time cop from the future. And the main purpose for time travel is historical research. And boy, this isn't even a fascinating sci-fi idea. Excuse me, Cop Squad. So let me think. I don't know who it was. It was one of the big 4 atheists, maybe Christopher Hitchens or Richard Dawkins or something. And their point was, well, if we were ever going to invent time travel, then where are all the tourists from the future? And this presents the idea that there's time travel, but it's tightly regulated by the government. And time cops are meant to prevent criminals from using unauthorized time travel to benefit themselves and steal stuff. And they have this fascinating concept of, what do they call it? Chronosail. And the idea of chronosail is you take the entire world down a path line in time all at once. Because if you tried to change the history of the world one event at a time, maybe you could change some things, but what if someone takes baby Hitler's place after you kill baby Hitler, and you did all that for nothing? So the idea of chronosail is you find a perfect spot for the time travel chronons or whatever it is, and then you move the entire world to your desired destination all at once. That's fascinating. And, it's all explained in one page, kind of dialogue heavy, but interesting drawing to keep me interested. And boy, the closest thing I've heard to that is sort of the anti-life equation in DC Comics, where that's even kind of a mysterious thing. This is an interesting concept. In a Donald Duck comic, would you have expected that? They're doing interesting things with the time travel story in this. it's not all old hat. So, she shows us, the Trojan horses, the French Revolution, the Wright brothers. Time cops are meant to protect critical moments in history from interference. I don't think they need these extra line boxes here, but a nice establishing shot here. That's just a few simple lines. Dynamic expressions, variety of the angles, everything. The talking scene was interesting, and they're getting ready to spring their trap on Red Raider. And unfortunately, they have to break into a high security bank to do it. So I hope I'm over this cold soon. This is not the kind of cop squad I want to be on. I want to be on the metaphorical cop squad, not the literal cop squad. Literally Hitler cop squad. Anyway, so they're getting ready to spring their trap for Red Raider. And, poor Donald, now he's in the middle of a bank, so he's likely going to get blamed for breaking and entering. She shows us she's smart based on her dialogue with Donald and her kind of letting her know, by the way, DA, I'm no dummy. Don't think I didn't notice him eavesdropping on our chat in your office. So she notices things. She noticed earlier when Donald was speaking into the speaker to one. So she's not an idiot. She's not just Lois Lane. She's cool time cop. And she's interesting. She's fun. Look at her. She's a fun character. She's not alpha, I'm going to beat you up all the time. She's nice. Okay. Have your characters be nice. Doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt. Okay. So she walks in, kind of doing like the, crazy finger gesture. Get ready for your final raid, Red Raider. Boom. Hello, Duck Avenger. Hope I didn't keep you waiting. They're respecting my time. She gets knocked out off screen, and Red Raider shows up. They don't spend 8 pages doing that. They get to the punch, and it's a little surprise. But Lyla is asleep upstairs with a headache. You monster, forcing pretty ladies to work at night. He kind of has this sort of, he's supposed to be a criminal, so he has sort of kind of a dumbed down way of talking, and he loves his time puns, but he comes off as a threat based on his trash talk and how much he clearly does not respect Duck Avenger. He didn't respect Duck Avenger the whole first fight. He dissed Duck Avenger, and then after Duck Avenger actually succeeded in stopping him, then he got revenge and stole Duck Avenger's victory, right? So essentially, even though we saw Duck Avenger being awesome earlier, he's lost in a fight with Red Raider once. In the second, he didn't even get a fight Red Raider because Red Raider manipulated time to stop Donald Duck. Man, I missed another thing. I keep thinking of such cool things. Donald explains this in layman's terms. This is a fantasy thing, but Donald is our kind of down-to-earth dude who we identify with. And his explanation of it is, well, how do I fight someone who can rewind the tape to before I beat him and then stop me from beating him, right? It's rewinding the tape. That's a 90s VHS technology reference, but it's a reference that a little child can understand. Tachyons. I don't know anything about what tachyons are, but they explain what tachyons are in kind of plain language in such a way that a little kid could kind of have a feel for what tachyons are. Are you hearing this, parents? I don't know what tachyons are, but if you want your kids to have a cultural reference point for tachyons, get them Duck Avenger #1. What else? When he realized the kind of foe he was facing, I got to go back and find this, because this is just a great little heroic moment. It was when he crashed into her, and they started having their talk. I want to find that, because I want to underscore kind of a moment of plucky heroism. Okay, so he's distressed. He's realized he's fighting with someone who can change time. Not soon after. I won't back down or get confused. She has to tell me everything. She's the only one who could possibly understand the gravity of my... And then he crashes into her. I won't back down or get confused. He is a hero. He doesn't back down in the face of something that he almost can't comprehend. How do you fight a time traveler when you're just Donald Duck in a superhero outfit? Oh my gosh, he's a hero. And then they revealed that he didn't, he tricked him. He pulled a rope-a-dope and made a fake based on what Lyla Lee told him about what the sale was supposed to look like. And then he keeps it away from Red Raider just long enough for Red Raider to run out of time. And then the cops show up to arrest him. And then they capture the villain. Lyla Lee's looking cute. and she reveals that she was watching and waiting for the opportune time to catch Red Raider. And now it's funny because she's throwing back Red Raider's dumb jokes at him. And he asks, well, weren't you knocked out? And then she says, that's because and it cuts away. And it's promising me, hopefully, that I'm going to know what's going on in the future. And then he asks her for a favor, and she's cute, and she says, yeah, of course I'll help you out. And Red, to emphasize the emotion of the situation, Angus Mangus shows up feeling triumphant. He's finally got Donald, and Lyla Lee helped Donald kind of be there to tease Angus Mangus, and then he gets caught by the security system. So Donald gets his revenge on Angus Mangus for committing libel. Now Angus is getting accused of showing up in the bank, and he deserves it because he went there. He did break in looking for Donald, and Donald just used the time travel stuff to escape and return to his hideout. Then after that, it's kind of like wrapping up. It turns out that Lyla Lee is going to stay in this time area, and Donald explains that she's a robot. That's where they explain why it was that she wasn't knocked out for long by Red Raider, is she's essentially a android. And this knocked my socks off. If you go back and watch my review of issue 0, I said there was a weird moment where a ray bounced off Lyla Lee and it didn't affect her. And I thought, well, gee, was that just not something that was very well explained? Maybe like Donald actually did something to help her, but they didn't explain that he did it. Was that That's why the Evronians' emotion-eating Evro gun wouldn't work when Argon fired on Lyla at the Anxiety's cast party. They set this up in a weird moment that I thought, hey, that seemed like a plot hole. It wasn't a plot hole. It was foreshadowing of Lyla Lee being this awesome robot time travel cop. Get this book! Get this! Yes! Oh my... Get this book. Get all the Duck comics. This is the best thing I've read all year. This belongs in your library. Give this to a kid. This will get him hooked on the medium of comics. I'm #1 Marmaduke fan. I love you guys, and I love this comic so much. Catch you later.